I'm here today to tell you the story of this cardigan that I'm wearing. In August of 2017, I went on my own little solo trip to Ireland. It was my Eat, Pray, Love moment. On one day, I took my rental car and I drove to Galway and took the ferry to Inishmore. Inishmore is one of the Aran Islands, so a really remote place in the mouth of Galway Bay. And on the ferry, I noticed there was quite a few people, and so my mood dropped with every selfie that was taken around me. I was supposed to be Julia Roberts on a meaningful, self-finding trip, not an average millennial doing exactly what the other 280 tourists were doing. So I arrived at the island, I was pretty bummed, and I rented a bike and went on to explore the island. My mood kind of got better. I even met a donkey whom I told my life story to, and he was the best listener I've ever encountered. At some point, I found a little shop, and the shop had knitted goods. So I walk inside, and there was a radio playing between two frequencies, and a lady sitting behind a desk, knitting away, and she didn't even look up. It was all pretty weird. So I walk in there and I try on a few things and nothing really catches my eye. But then I see it. This beautiful, chunky cardigan. A color I couldn't exactly define. So I tried it on and I knew this was my cardigan. And while I try it on, I see two eyes in the reflection of the mirror behind me looking up. The lady seemed as if she had woken up from a sleep of thousands of years. She stared at me, and all she said was, "This is your cardigan." It was kind of a Lord of the Rings moment, you know? And I knew it was my cardigan, but I also knew she lived in such a remote place that she probably only took cash and no cards. So I asked her, do you take cards? She goes, "I'm sorry. This cardigan is 130 euros. I knitted it myself with local wool, and unfortunately, I only take cash." She could instantly read the expression on my face. She could read the disappointment. She silently took an envelope, wrote something on it, and gave it to me. "This is my address. Once you get to a cash machine, mail me the money and take the cardigan." So I was confused, suspicious, and happy at the same time. I left with this cardigan, and I didn't pay for it. I mailed her the money the same day. Let's skip forward to 1 year after, exactly 1 year, in August of 2018. It was 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning when my doorbell rang. I went to the door, I picked up, and there was a young man's voice on the other end. And he claimed to be living in the house. He wanted to get in. So I asked for his name. I didn't know it. His voice didn't sound familiar. So I had a split second to decide, do I let the stranger inside of my house or I don't? I decided not to trust him. I apologized and went back to bed. A few hours later, it was 6:30 in the morning. I had to leave early. I leave my house, and to my right, there's a young man, probably 17, 18, sleeping on the street. He was probably freezing, and also my heart froze. I woke him up. I apologized deeply. I let him into the house. I went on with my day, but I had a stingy sensation in my chest. What is the difference between the one bill and the other bill, which is my currency? I hope you love it. It's trust. As author Greg Lewin says, it's the glue to our lives, our social contract. Trust is the one thing that every government, organization, team, nation, civilization, and relationship have in common. Trust is so powerful. If you remove trust, it has the power to destroy the most thriving economy, the most successful business, the most powerful government, and the deepest love. But there's an uncertainty connected to trust and to engaging with other people. But think about the placebo effect and what it means to trust a doctor or a pill. But this uncertainty, once you've trusted and you've been betrayed, what does it mean for you? Would you trust a bank that has gambled away all of your money? Would you trust a company or buy from a company that has been accused of fraud? Would you go back to a friend that has let you down? Just like you probably too, I have experienced betrayal of trust. I was raised by a single mom, and I've witnessed her being cheated on several times. I witnessed the pain and the emotional exhaustion. I witnessed what it means to shut down, to give up. I was only 5 years old when I came home from a trip with relatives, and I ran into the door, I hugged my mom, but I noticed something is off. I noticed someone's missing. I noticed that her boyfriend, whom I had accepted as my father at the time, was not there. So I asked her, where is he? My mom teared up, and she said, he's gone. I'm sorry. One of my most vivid childhood memories is sitting in that living room right before Christmas with my mom and my brother, crying our eyes out. Only when I was later, I found out that he had cheated on her for over a year and left the family, and he never said goodbye to us kids. And the message that I got from a very young age was, don't trust men. I went on to be a grown-up woman, independent woman, but often I found myself with a I can do this myself attitude. And what I perceived as strong and independent a lot of times was simply uncompromising and inflexible. But the thing is, trusting is based on risk and reward. Every decision we do is based on risk and reward. Let me give you an example. We've been doing this for thousands of years. Any hunter had to decide, will killing this animal give me a great reward, as in a hot meal, or will it give me a risk, as in I might be killed? And still today, you base every decision you make on risk and reward. Will buying this new apartment will give me great happiness or great financial burden? Will speaking my mind to the person I have a crush on give me a shot in dating that person, or will it deeply embarrass me? And the thing is, trusting means being vulnerable and taking risks. And trusting is accepting the unknown. Trust is not when you say, I will fall, but when you actually do it. Trusting is when you say, I love you, with no guarantee of being loved back. But there is so much unknown in our world today. We don't know how rapidly the climate will change. We don't know if our generation will still have pensions, and we don't even know if there will still be coral reefs. And the unknown is scary, don't you think? It's like skinny dipping in the ocean at night. You don't really know what's there. So what do? From trust, we turn to control, because by controlling, we avoid risk. By controlling who comes into our country, we give ourselves a sense of security. By controlling our emotions, we avoid feeling. And by controlling what we have now, we try to avoid change. But the thing is, you can never predict the unpredictable, and you cannot make permanent what is temporary. Everything changes. But the big issue here is this control, it doesn't happen consciously. We do it subconsciously every single day, almost every minute of our lives. It happens through habits and expectations. Both can be really handy in life. They're pretty cool. Habits, on one hand, they are autopilot. They allow us to disengage from experience, and we can interact quicker. Let me give you an example. Crossing the street. You don't stop every time at the street and actively remind yourself to look left and right. You just come up to the street, you look left and right, and you cross. Expectations, on the other hand, can be really handy as well. You can expect the traffic to be heavier on a Friday afternoon, so you leave a little earlier to get to the train station on time to catch the train. But both habits and expectations can limit us endlessly. A habit of constantly checking your phone might make you a terrible dinner partner. It might make you miss out on great conversations, but it also might make you spend half of your life in front of a screen. And expectations. An expectation of a foreign culture might an expectation of a foreign culture might sum up in prejudice. It might make you not talk to someone with a different passport, or it might make you not talk to someone with no passport at all. You, me, we all are a product of our past. Yet our habits and expectations and our way of controlling things can limit us. There is no way we can protect ourselves or everything around us. By controlling, we kill potential connection. We iron out all the beautiful wrinkles that life has to offer. I was a guest at the European Parliament last week in Brussels, and flying back, I saw this. This is a vending machine where you just throw money in a box and you take a bottle. And this was so ironic because an airport is the opposite of trust. It's a place of control, of security, high security. But there it was, an island of trust. It was a vending machine without walls. But right now there is walls everywhere. There is walls between us and refugees. There is walls between people with political views, walls between vegans and omnivores. There's walls between every one of us, between us and nature. There's walls around each one of us. And we think that these walls are there to protect us. Well, they're not. Because we can't control everything. And trusting requires courage. And courage is not when there is no anxiety or fear. Courage is when you act despite the fact that there is anxiety and fear. And we live in a time where we have forgotten to stand up and say, I'm scared, I don't know what to do. But saying these words will instantly make all the walls go down. As we heard before, you might die in a few years, or you might die tomorrow. You might let a stranger into your house and not get along well. You might say, I love you, and not be loved back. You might speak up and not be heard. There is always a risk or a reward. And this process is so painful. Think about a baby being born out of its mother's womb. If the baby doesn't trust the process, this painful process, it won't ever be born. And think about nature. Nature doesn't think about trusting, it just does. A caterpillar doesn't think about trusting the process and the painful uncertainty. A caterpillar just does and then becomes a beautiful butterfly. The day before I left for one of the greatest adventures of my life, I was 20 and about to leave for 4 months in Asia. And I was at home and terrified. I said, I'm not going to leave. I'm so scared. I'm only 20, 4 months, too much. So my brother sat me down and he said, trust me, you'll be fine. I trusted him, and eventually I trusted myself. I went on to one of the greatest adventures of my life. I traveled by myself at the age of 20 for 4 months in Asia, and I met the most amazing people. I had the most greatest experience. I learned so much. This is me ziplining in the jungle of Laos. It's almost 10 years ago, and literally jumping into the unknown. These 4 months were the stepping stone of my career that brought me on a TEDx stage for the second time in my life. Becoming an entrepreneur at the age of 21, 22 involved a lot of risks, but the rewards were much greater. Trusting myself, my own abilities, and the people along the way is what brought me here. Trust is so important for our economical, environmental, and generational problems, and it will be. Think about sharing economy and what sharing resources will mean for us and our planet. My mother, after having been abused in trust so many times, still decided to go on with her life and trust. She started hosting exchange students for years and years, people from foreign countries. She just let them into her house, even though she's had so many bad experiences in her life. She never got a single cent for doing that. She does it because she trusts, and because so many beautiful things can happen out of trust. respect, connection, understanding. And there's one thing that I've learned from my mother along the way. To solve the problems of our time, we do not need more walls. We need trust. Thank you.